BaltimoreBaseball.com. We're having a fascinating conversation here, Rich Dubroff. We're talking about, comparing the Reds and the Orioles. 1 year difference. I don't know how closely you follow the Reds. You know everything about the Orioles, and we'll get to their current team in a minute. But I want to walk, Rich, if you wouldn't mind. Thanks for being with us this morning. I want you to walk us through sort of the evolution of what's happened here with the Orioles, because the Reds a year later are so eerily similar in many, many ways.
Well, it really is true, because I thought you were going to talk about that, Thom. And not only are the Reds and the Orioles similar, but the cities, the sports cities of Baltimore and Cincinnati are really parallel right now too. The Orioles were a year ago just starting to get hot at this time, and their season was basically made by a 10-game winning streak. And here the Reds have that 12-game winning streak, and it's vaulted them all of a sudden into the national conversation. The big difference is that the AL East is a lot tougher than the NL Central.
But okay, so when the 10-game winning streak starts last year, and there's no doubt, we were talking about that before you came on. I mean, it's one thing to compete with Milwaukee and Chicago and Pittsburgh and St. Louis opposed to the Rays and the Yankees and the Red Sox and it's a different world. But and Toronto, I left them out. How can you leave them out? But I'm sure a lot of people this time, and maybe you were one of them, that was saying to Mike Elias, the general manager, hey, you're all of a sudden in the hunt. What are you going to do? Did he all of a sudden get fielded with these questions and he just kind of said, no, we're just going to play this out, trust the process? What did he do this time a year ago?
Well, what he did was he said, he said the Orioles were going to consider doing everything, and they ended up being sellers at the deadline, but it ended up turning out really well for them, because they traded Jorge Lopez, who was their all-star closer, and they promoted Felix Bautista, who was their setup man, to their closer, and he became an even better closer than Lopez. And in that trade, they acquired Yennier Cano, who's turned out to be a terrific setup man this year. And he was terrible in a few appearances for the Orioles late last year. So it turned out to be, a really, really good move. And they traded Trey Mancini, and Mancini has really struggled with the Astros, and has had a difficult year with the Cubs this year. So it seems like almost everything Elias has done has turned out to be a positive for them, even though in the short term, he was still kind of unsure that the Orioles were had enough to be in the postseason conversation, and they ended up being a few games short. I mean, they were really hot until about Labor Day, and then cooled off. So it's just interesting, because I've been watching what the Reds are doing, and of course with De La Cruz, he's this year's Adley Rutschman, for the Orioles. As soon as Rutschman came up, or right after Rutschman came up, the Orioles started playing great. And now the Reds have brought up De La Cruz, and they're on a tear.
Well, but now you get into the whole thing, and I'm curious if Elias is, or at least what's the thinking there now in Baltimore, that, okay, now you are where you are. I read one of your pieces over the weekend where I think you said that the Baltimore Orioles' chances of making the playoffs are up to 68, 69%, something along those lines, right? Okay, but now in Baltimore, I got to believe you're thinking, okay, I look around. The Rays are really good. The Astros are not the Astros. Nobody in the Central Division scares anybody, right? So all of a sudden you're the Orioles, and you're looking around and you're going, okay, man, if there's ever a time perhaps to, we got good young players still coming up. We got some guys we're really high on. But boy, if we could get that one more, kind of like the Reds are in now. You get that one more starting pitcher, right? A guy who's really good. Now all of a sudden you got a chance to get to the World Series. Is that pressure starting to mount at all in Baltimore?
No, well, I think, Thom, I think that people are saying, oh, well, they got to get that other starting pitcher. But, the starters have been pretty good. The starters have been pretty good. What they need, I think, are two more, um, you know, middle inning relief pitchers, because they have Cano, they have Batista, but their middle inning relief lately has been a little shaky. So if they can get those, and I wouldn't be surprised if Elias gets another starting pitcher, although I don't think I don't think they're going to get be able to get a top, if the Mets decided that, let's reset and make Scherzer and Verlander available. I don't think that they would do it. Certainly, if the Cardinals aren't in the race, somebody like Jack Flaherty seems to make a lot of sense. But I don't know. I've been watching Elias every day for years, and I still don't know. I'm still not very good at guessing what he's going to do.
All right, walk me through some of the matchups this weekend. I know that Irvin has not pitched a lot at the big league level this year. Tell us a little bit about him.
Well, he had a really good year statistically for Oakland, and the Orioles acquired him. And I thought it was a terrific trade. They traded a prospect named Darrell Hernandez, who was an infielder who was behind many other good infielders for him. And I thought, oh, this is terrific. But then Irvin had three really difficult starts, and they sent him right down. And that showed me that Elias was really in it to win it, because in previous years they would have sort of stayed the course with him, or stayed with him for more than three starts. He's come back, and he's had a couple of good starts. But I think that he may be his spot may be in danger, because Grayson Rodriguez, their top pitching prospect, is pitching well at AAA, who had been up earlier this year, and Rodriguez may be coming back at some point. And Irvin has been a very difficult guy to read this year. Mm-hmm. It's been very strange. Because they obviously thought he was going to be a lot better than he was.
The best pitching matchup of the series is clearly tomorrow night. You got Andrew Abbott, young pitcher for the Reds, who's had 4 outstanding starts with the big leagues. You got Tyler Wells, this mountain of a man, whether he's 6'8", 6'9", something like 260, 200. He looks like he ought to be playing for the Ravens. This guy's had a really nice year. He's won 6 times. He started 14 games, ERA in the low 2s. Tomorrow night looks like it could be the best matchup of the series. You agree?
Yeah, I think that I don't know a lot about Andrew Abbott. This will be my first look at him, but Wells has been very strong. He's he was a reliever a couple of years ago, and then they made him a starter last year. He pitched well, then got hurt, and he's been their most consistent starter. His undoing has been the home run ball, and most of them have been solo shots. But other than that, he's pitched really well. And is he a number one starter? I'm not sure. I don't know how many true number one starters there really are in the big leagues right now, Thom. So he's he's the best the Orioles have right now.
Yeah, and Abbott's the best the Reds have right now without Hunter Green or Lodolo hanging around. The guy a guy like Gibson, who will pitch tomorrow night. Now the Orioles bring him in. He was a solid pitcher for a long time. Didn't get a lot of pub. Solid guy with Minnesota. Goes to Texas. Goes to Philly. Did okay in Philly. Baltimore brings him in. I mean, this guy's been a godsend for this team so far this year.
Yeah, he is. He's been terrific. A lot of fans were upset when the Orioles didn't re-sign Jordan Lyles, who sort of had that same role last year, and then they signed Gibson. But Gibson has been terrific, and Jordan Lyles recently won his first game of the season. He was 0-11 before that for the Royals. So Gibson is a really solid guy, and he's a good clubhouse guy. The Orioles have done a good job at adding a couple of really good veterans, Adam Frazier, James McCann.
Well, the kid from the Yankees has just gone off the reservation. Nobody saw that coming.
No one saw that coming. I thought when Cedric Mullins got hurt and they brought in Aaron Hicks, well, I thought that, what are they doing here? Because they had two excellent left-hand hitting prospects at AAA Norfolk, but both of them were on the injured list. So they signed Hicks. Hicks has done really well, resurrected his career, and forced them to keep him. And he gets to keep playing as a result. He may not play as often as he did when Mullins was hurt, but he's been a great add.
I can't thank you enough for your time today, Rich. One last thing I wanted to ask you, because you brought it up. The similarities between the two towns in many ways from a sports standpoint.
Sure.
I think it's safe to say for a long time, the Reds in Cincinnati, the Orioles in Baltimore, they were it, right? And you had, the Colts left a long time ago. Then the Ravens come rolling in. Now all of a sudden the Ravens have kind of taken over the town. I think it's safe to say, just like the Bengals have taken over the town for a multitude of reasons here in Cincinnati. This weekend here in Cincinnati, the Braves come into town, and it's 45,000 for 3 straight days, right? I mean, they're packing the place, and they're going crazy, and it's exciting baseball and these young players. Is that a vibe starting to kick in a little bit in Baltimore? Because I know that fans like here had gone a little south on ownership. Are they trying to win? You know the story, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, it's very similar. But I think that, fans saw, as bad as the Reds have been, the Orioles were worse. The Orioles had 3 108 or more lost seasons in the previous 4 years, other than the pandemic year. And a lot of people thought that last year they were heading for that. And I think sometimes fans are slow to get in on the bandwagon. They're slow to realize when teams are going south, and they're also slow to realize when teams are starting to get good. But attendance has been picking up this year. Monday through Thursday nights have been a harder sell, but on the weekends they're starting to do well. But it's a team that looks like it's going to be a really good team for the next 5 or 6 years, I think.
All right, before I let you get out of here, you may remember, you may not remember our good friend Paul Fritchner, who's one of the co-hosts of this show.
Yes,
the former voice of Bowie. He was telling some story today about you eating some frozen dinner at the ballpark in Bowie. Is it Bowie or Bowie?
Bowie. It's
in
Bowie.
Bowie. That I'm on my way there tomorrow. I got to go to Annapolis tomorrow. But I hear this story, and he's like, every time I've ever seen Rich Simpson, he brings up eating that microwave frozen dinner at the ballpark in Bowie.
It's called Mighty Meal. They were called Mighty Meals, and they were not mighty.
They were terrible. Rich, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming on the show. Hope everything's going well.
Everything's great. Thanks a lot, Paul. And I hope, and Thom, I hope your dad's doing well. I miss hearing him.
Well, I'm going to meet him in Annapolis tomorrow. I have a niece. He has a granddaughter that's going into the Naval Academy. So the entire Brennaman clan is on our way to Annapolis, Maryland tomorrow.
Well, good for them, and maybe you'll stop up at the ballpark and see the Reds and the Orioles while you're there.
I think it's off the reservation, but it'd be nice to see you. And we can't thank you enough, Rich, for your time. BaltimoreBaseball.com, right? That's a spot. I mean, your stuff is awesome.
Well, thank you, Thom. It's always good talking to you.
Okay, buddy. Rich Dubroff, kind enough to join us from Baltimore.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, now there's a guy. I mean, you even said yourself. I mean, he's all over the Orioles, right?
Yeah.
All the time.
It has been for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. Good guy. Really good guy. I remember